Hello and welcome to Spinster's Library. I'm Claudia, and guess what I haven't done at all this week? Yeah, obviously it's reading. I mean, that's what I do on this channel. If you said pooping, then please show yourself out the door. I have not touched one of these this entire week, which is rather depressing if you think about it, but this video is not about reading slumps. At least it's not my usual video about reading slump, in which I complain about being in a reading slump and then tell you what I'm going to do about getting out of a reading slump. No, today I want to talk about reading as a form of self-care and how I use reading as a form of self-care. Spoiler, I don't. I am recording this on a Friday evening after a rather long and tiring day at work. You can tell it was evening because my husband bought me these amazing and incredibly bright studio lights for my birthday, so now I can film any time of the day, which is fantastic because these days I'm spending most of my time at my day job, which is really quite draining. First of all, it's very physically draining. It's a very active job. I'm on my feet all day. And secondly, it's a very mentally draining because it's a retail job. So I'm in contact with people all day. I talk to people all the time. It's very noisy. It doesn't suit an introvert like me, let's put it like that. So when I come home from a day at work, I am exhausted. And I want to do nothing more than lie on the sofa and not move off the sofa until I have to go to work again the next day, which is very impractical. You'd think in those circumstances that I'd spend a lot of time reading books, because reading books is an activity that's very well suited to lounging on the sofa. But actually, I'm not doing that at all. The only books I'm reading at the moment really are during my lunch break at work. My lunch break is 30 minutes. And I'm supposed to also be eating lunch. It's not really enough time to get into a book. So I haven't touched a book this week and I'm feeling a bit shitty about it. Self-care has become a bit of a buzzword in this century, in this decade. We have a vague concept of bubble baths and scented candles and things like that. Things that we are supposed to buy because, unfortunately, more often than not, self-care is a way of selling you stuff. So things that we are supposed to buy in order to take care of ourselves so that we can be more productive, spend more money, be a better consumer in 2019. Maybe I'm seeing this in a too negative light because I work in retail, but this whole idea of treating yourself with something that you buy it's just a bit stale, isn't it? Because actually owning things doesn't, most of the time, make us any happier. I mean, owning this air plant has made me quite happy, but it hasn't exactly provided the stress-free relaxation that I was hoping from this purchase. So no, self-care is not buying things. Self-care is clearly an activity. But is it reading? And for me, I just don't think it is. When I'm exhausted on the sofa, eating my dinner, the last thing I want to pick up is a book. And that's another whole thing that led me into somewhat of an identity crisis, because I'm a reader. Shouldn't I thirst for books? Shouldn't I want to pick up a book at any moment in the day, any time I have even a spare moment and a free hand? Shouldn't I be reading a book? But for me, reading is something that happens when I'm already relaxed. Reading is something that happens when I'm already content, when I have energy, when I'm at peace with myself. It is not something that I do to get to that point, if you know what I mean. And that is what self-care should be. It is something that you do for yourself to get to a point of relaxation, to get to a point where your worries and stresses aren't quite weighing you down so heavily. And for me, that's not books. Now, I'd really like to know from you if you tend to reach for a book in those situations, or if, like me, you reach for other things. And in my case, other things are, somewhat depressingly, my smartphone. I will mindlessly look through social media just to get away from my own brain for a bit. I like to watch TV. I'm currently watching Keeping Faith on the BBC with Eve Miles, who used to be in Torchwood and Doctor Who. So that's quite enjoyable, and that's something that I feel gives me more pleasure than just looking at Twitter. I tend to bake as a form of self-care. I've noticed that when I'm feeling particularly stressed and I feel the need to do something about it, often baking provides that kind of little happy space, and not just, but partly because I then get a cake out of it. And if I may say so myself, I am a rather good baker, so, you know, there is a treat at the end of that. With baking, funnily enough, comes audiobooks and podcasts, so sometimes I will read while baking, you know, I'll listen to an audiobook while baking. But the baking is the main event, the baking is the self-care, the reading isn't. And lately, I've been drawn to, you know, plants. As you can tell, my office has gotten a lot greener than it used to be. And I'll do some repotting or something like that, or I'll look at some plants online as a form of self-care. Speaking of online, I also watch a lot of BookTube when I'm in that state of mind. And again, I'm not really drawn to BookTube when I am stressed and exhausted, but I'll watch YouTube videos about other things like plants or tiny homes or vegan YouTube drama. There's a lot of things that for some reason my brain craves when I feel like I need a little bit of self-care, and none of them are book related. So there's a confession for you. However, I've noticed that there's one thing that I sometimes get. Sometimes when I'm very stressed and when I have a lot to do, I will almost flee into my Harry Potter collection. So sometimes I notice that I'll just lean over and grab Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix and I'll read it in 2 days straight. And that's when I know that I really should be doing something else. So reading as a form of procrastination does happen sometimes. Reading as a form of self-care, not so much. I wonder why that is. I think partly it's because reading does require some energy input from my brain. It's not something that I can just absorb. It's not something that I can switch off and just take in like a TV show or a YouTube video. I think the other aspect to this is that reading requires an active choice to turn off the tech, to turn off the laptop, the TV, the phone, or at least to put the phone away, and to pick up something made of paper. And sometimes that just feels daunting, even if it isn't, even if I really, deep down, I know that I'm going to relax and enjoy the book, it feels like more work. Which, you know, I know it shouldn't, but it does. Listen, I'm just telling you what's going on in my head. Now, this isn't the sort of video where I'm asking for advice. I don't feel like I have a problem that I need to overcome. So, you know, if you write in the comments, oh, well, have you tried turning your phone off for an hour in the evening? Like, it's not really what I'm looking for from this video. I just wanted to share my experiences with you and ask you if you actually consider reading as a form of self-care for yourself. If you reach for a book when you're stressed, when you're anxious, when you're exhausted, when you're tired, when you just need to switch off from the rest of the world. Do you reach for books or do you reach for other things? I'd be really interested to know what you do and what your reactions are, and what other form of self-care you consider useful for yourself. Because I can tell you one thing, bubble baths ain't it, and neither are scented candles. None of those things do anything to relax me. Sometimes in the winter, I'll say to Bill, oh, you know what, I'm feeling a bit tense and stuff, I'm just gonna go have a bath. And then I sit in the bathtub and just 10 minutes later, I just want to get out. So baths for me are just a massive waste of bath bombs and hot water. So I don't tend to do those often. But, you know, maybe it works for you. I've also just realised I forgot to talk about one really, really big part of self-care in my life. Hang on a moment. Oh, hello, Beetle. Oh, definitely my lovely cats. They provide so much fun and solace and companionship, and sometimes when I want to switch off from the world, I'll just go and wake one of them up, which I know is rude, but they do that to me as well. Or I'll go for a walk with Beetle or Minerva, or I'll brush their fur, or I'll play with their toys, and that certainly helps a lot as well. So if you haven't got one, get yourself a cat. They're really good. Thank you for watching. Bye.